before you scroll, before you decide this video is not for you, listen to this very carefully. If your life has become quiet lately, if people stop noticing you, if you feel invisible even though you're trying your best, this message is not random, and if you leave now, you may never understand why Allah allowed this season in your life. Let me ask you something. Why do some people become silent right before they become strong? Why does Allah remove attention right before He changes someone completely? Why does life feel the heaviest when you are doing nothing wrong? Most people will tell you this is failure. They will say you are falling behind. They will say you are forgotten. But what if they are wrong? What if this silence is not rejection, but preparation? What if Allah stepped in before the world broke you and said, "Enough, step back, I will handle this. Stay with me till the end." Because by the time this video finishes, you will understand why Allah pulls certain people into the background, why your life feels paused, why your circle got smaller, why your heart feels heavier but clearer. And once you understand this, you will stop begging to be seen. You will stop chasing validation. You will stop doubting yourself, because you'll realize Allah didn't make you invisible to lose you. He did it to rebuild you. Stay till the end. Allah withdraws the crowd when He is about to rewrite the woman. There are moments in life when Allah quietly removes people from around you. Friends stop calling the way they used to. Conversations become shorter. Invitations slowly fade. Even people you once felt close to begin to feel distant, and you start questioning yourself. Did I do something wrong? Did I change? Why does it feel like I'm being left behind? My dear sister, listen carefully. This is not because you are unlovable. This is not because you failed. This is not because Allah is unhappy with you. This happens because the woman Allah is shaping inside you cannot be formed in front of an audience. When too many voices surround a woman, she slowly stops being herself. She begins to adjust just to keep peace. She holds back her true feelings so she doesn't upset anyone. She chooses words carefully, not because she wants to, but because she has to. She learns how to survive instead of learning how to become. And Allah sees this. Allah sees when a woman is shrinking her heart to fit into places that were never meant to hold her. He sees when she is carrying expectations that are not hers. He sees when she is being shaped more by people than by purpose. So Allah does something very gentle, but very strong. He clears the room, not suddenly, not harshly, quietly. One by one, the noise fades. And at first this hurts, because silence feels like rejection when you are not yet aware of its purpose. Loneliness feels like loss when you don't yet see what Allah is protecting. But in that quiet space, something important begins. For the first time, you hear your own thoughts clearly. You begin to notice what drains you and what gives you peace. You start asking yourself questions you were too busy to ask before. Who am I when I'm not trying to please anyone? What do I actually believe? What does my heart need to feel safe with Allah? This is where Allah starts rewriting you. Not based on people's opinions, not based on their comfort, not based on their approval, but based on truth. In this space, your strength changes. Before, your strength came from being liked, from being needed, from being included. But now, your strength begins to come from knowing who you are with Allah. You no longer bend just to be accepted. You no longer explain yourself just to be understood. You no longer measure your worth by how many people are watching. You begin to stand with quiet confidence. And this is a dangerous strength. Not loud, not aggressive, but deeply rooted. This is the kind of woman who cannot be easily shaken. The kind of woman who does not disappear when things get uncomfortable. The kind of woman who knows when to stay silent and when to speak. So if you are in a season where your circle feels smaller, where your life feels quieter, where you feel unseen, Do not rush to fill the silence. Do not blame yourself. Allah has not taken people away to punish you. He has taken them away so He can meet you alone and rewrite you without interference. And when He is done, you will return stronger, calmer, and clearer, not needing approval, because your strength will finally come from conviction. What feels like disappearance is actually divine containment. There are seasons when you feel like you have disappeared, not physically, but emotionally. People don't ask about you the way they used to. Your presence doesn't seem noticed. Your absence doesn't seem questioned. It feels like life moved on without checking if you were okay. And this feeling is painful, because as a woman, you give deeply. You show up, you care, you remember people. So when you feel forgotten, it cuts very quietly, but very deeply. But, my dear sister, listen carefully. What feels like disappearance is not Allah removing you. It is Allah containing you. Allah does not leave valuable things exposed. When something is precious, it is protected. When something is fragile, while it is growing, it is covered. When something powerful is still forming, it is kept safe. Allah places certain women in unseen spaces, not because they are unimportant, but because they are becoming too important to be mishandled. Right now, Allah is holding you, holding your heart together when it could have shattered, holding your iman when disappointment could have weakened it, holding your identity when outside voices could have confused you. You may feel smaller in this season, but you are actually being compressed, not reduced. And compression creates strength. Think about it. If you were still surrounded by noise, still trying to be everything for everyone, still exposed to opinions, expectations, and pressure, you would not survive what Allah is preparing you for next. So Allah steps in gently. He pulls you back from the world before the world takes too much from you. This containment feels uncomfortable because it removes distraction. You start noticing your pain more clearly. You feel emotions you were once too busy to feel. You sit with questions you avoided for years. And yes, this feels heavy. But this is where healing happens. Allah does not heal hearts in chaos. He heals them in quiet. He allows you to slow down so your soul can catch up. He allows you to be unseen so you can rest from performing. He allows you to step back so you stop proving your worth to people who never protected it. This season is not pushing you away from life. It is pulling you closer to yourself, closer to Allah, closer to truth. And in this space, something beautiful begins to form. You start understanding what you truly need. You learn where your limits are. You recognize what drains you and what nourishes you. You become more selective, more aware, more grounded, not because you hardened, but because you finally felt safe enough to be honest. Allah is teaching you something important here. Your value was never in how visible you were. Your worth was never in how many people needed you. Your strength was never in how much you gave away. Your worth is in who you are when no one is watching. And that kind of worth cannot be destroyed. So if you feel hidden right now, if your life feels quiet, if you feel like you're standing on the sidelines, please understand this. Allah did not remove you from the world. He pulled you closer to Him. He placed you in His care, so you could be strengthened without pressure, healed without judgment, and prepared without interference. And when this season ends, and it will, you will return lighter, wiser, and more steady, not despaired of attention, not shaken by silence, because you will know something you didn't know before. Being held by Allah is far greater than being seen by the world. Allah hides certain women because their strength is not meant for public handling. There are women in this world who feel deeply, they love sincerely, they give without counting. They carry pain quietly and still show kindness. And these women often wonder why life feels harder for them, why they attract people who take more than they give, why they feel emotionally exhausted even when they try their best, why their kindness is misunderstood or misused. My dear sister, this is not because your heart is weak. It is because your heart is strong, and not everyone knows how to handle strength that comes with softness. Some people see a gentle woman and think she is easy to use. Some see patience and mistake it for permission. Some see forgiveness and push boundaries again and again. And Allah sees all of this. Allah sees when a woman keeps giving even when she is empty. He sees when she stays quiet just to keep peace. He sees when her kindness becomes a doorway for others to take advantage. So Allah intervenes, not loudly, not suddenly, but wisely. He hides her. He removes her from spaces where her strength is misunderstood. He distances her from people who benefit from her softness but never protect it. He closes doors that lead to emotional exhaustion. And at first, this feels confusing. You wonder why relationships change, why people drift away, why you no longer fit where you once belonged. But what is actually happening is this. Allah is saying, not everyone deserves access to you. Your strength is not meant for careless hands. Your heart is not meant for those who do not respect it. Your patience is not meant to be tested endlessly. Some people only see your strength as something they can lean on, never something they should honor. So Allah hides you from them. This hiding is not rejection. It is protection. Allah protects rare things differently. He does not leave them exposed to be damaged. He does not allow them to be used until they are empty. He does not let them break just to prove how strong they are. Instead, He pulls them away quietly. In this hidden space, something important happens. You start to notice patterns. You realize how much you were giving without receiving. You understand how often you ignored your own needs to make others comfortable. This awareness is painful but necessary. Allah is teaching you discernment. He is teaching you that not every request deserves a yes. That not every relationship deserves your emotional energy. That your kindness is not endless, and it should not be treated as such. This is where your strength matures. Before, your strength was emotional endurance. Now, your strength becomes wisdom. You begin to protect your heart without guilt. You choose peace without explaining yourself. You step back from people who drain you, even if they once felt familiar. And this makes you feel lonely at times. Because growing strength often requires separation, but Allah is not making you alone. He is making you safe. Safe from being overextended. Safe from emotional harm. Safe from losing yourself while trying to save others. And when Allah eventually brings you back into visibility, you return different. Still kind, but more grounded. Still gentle, but more aware. Still loving, but no longer available to be used. You will no longer pour into empty cups. You will no longer prove your worth through sacrifice. You will no longer mistake pain for loyalty. This is not hardness. This is balance. Allah is shaping a woman whose strength is not just emotional depth, but emotional boundaries. And that kind of strength is rare. So if Allah has hidden you from certain people, from certain spaces, from certain conversations, do not chase what He removed. Do not beg for access to places He closed. Allah did not hide you because you were too much. He hid you because what you carry was too precious to be handled carelessly. And when the time comes, He will place you exactly where your strength is honored, not consumed. When your life gets quiet, Allah is speaking directly to your core. There are seasons when life suddenly becomes quiet, not empty, not broken, just quiet. Your phone doesn't ring the same way. Your days feel slower. Your nights feel longer. And in that quiet, your thoughts become louder. At first, this silence feels uncomfortable because silence removes distraction. It removes excuses. It removes the ability to run from what you feel. But my dear sister, listen carefully. This quiet is not punishment. This quiet is Allah speaking to you without interruption. When life is noisy, Allah's voice is easy to ignore. When everything is busy, the heart stays distracted. When people are always around, we rarely sit with ourselves. So Allah created this quiet, not to scare you, not to confuse you, but to bring your attention back to what truly matters. In this quiet season, Allah is gently guiding you inward. You begin to notice things you ignored before. Emotions you pushed aside come back to the surface. Questions you avoided start asking themselves. And this can feel heavy, because clarity often arrives before comfort. But this is where real change begins. Allah does not shout guidance. He whispers it, and whispers can only be heard when everything else is silent. In this season, Allah is teaching you how to listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart. You start realizing what no longer feels right, what no longer brings peace, what no longer aligns with who you are becoming. And slowly, very slowly, you stop forcing yourself into places that drain you. You stop chasing things that leave you empty. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't listen anyway. This is not you becoming distant. This is you becoming aware. Allah is peeling away what does not belong. Old habits, old attachments, old ways of thinking. Not to leave you empty, but to make room. Room for peace. Room for sincerity. Room for a deeper connection with Him. This is also the season where your relationship with Allah becomes personal, not inherited, not borrowed, not based on what others say, but lived. Your dua becomes honest, your tears become sincere, your faith becomes real. You are no longer praying just because you should. You are praying because your heart needs it. And Allah loves this closeness because it is real. Some people misunderstand this phase. They think you've changed. They think you've become quiet. They think you've pulled away, but they don't see what Allah is doing inside you. They don't see that Allah is teaching you to stand without noise, to trust without proof, to believe without reassurance. This is not weakness. This is spiritual maturity. Allah is shaping a woman who is not easily influenced, not easily shaken, not easily lost. A woman who knows when to speak and when to stay silent, who knows when to move and when to wait, who knows when to let go and when to hold on. And this kind of wisdom cannot be taught in chaos. It is only learned in stillness. So if your life feels quieter right now, if you feel less distracted but more aware, if you feel closer to Allah but farther from noise, do not be afraid. Allah is not taking something away from you. He is giving you clarity, and clarity will always feel uncomfortable before it feels peaceful. But once it settles, you will realize this quiet season was not empty at all. It was full of guidance, full of healing, full of Allah's voice, speaking directly to your core. Some women are removed from visibility because their hearts are being fortified, not broken. There are moments in life when it feels like your heart is breaking. You feel tired for no clear reason. You feel heavy even on good days. You feel sensitive, emotional, and easily overwhelmed. And you start wondering, why am I feeling like this? Why does everything feel harder than before? My dear sister, listen carefully. This is not because you are weak. This is not because you are failing. This is because Allah is strengthening your heart, not breaking it. Sometimes Allah removes a woman from visibility, from noise, from people, because her heart needs protection before it needs praise. There are hearts that have carried too much for too long. Hearts that stayed strong while being hurt. Hearts that kept forgiving while being drained. Hearts that smiled while quietly bleeding. Allah sees that. and Allah does not ignore a tired heart. So He slows life down. He allows things to fall apart gently, so your heart does not collapse suddenly. This season may feel painful because Allah is touching places inside you that were never healed properly. Old wounds, old disappointments, old fears you buried just to survive. Allah brings them to the surface, not to hurt you, but to heal you completely, not partially. Healing is not loud. Healing feels uncomfortable at first, because it asks you to feel what you avoided, to rest when you were used to pushing, to stop when you were praised for endurance. And this feels scary, because you were taught that strength means continuing no matter what. But Allah teaches something different. Allah teaches that true strength is knowing when to pause, when to step back, when to protect your heart. This season is not tearing you down, it is reinforcing you. Allah is strengthening your inner walls, so you are no longer shaken by every opinion, every rejection, every disappointment. Before this season, your heart absorbed everything. Now, Allah is teaching it to filter. What belongs, stays. What harms, leaves. This is why you feel more emotional. Not because you are losing control, but because your heart is becoming more honest. You are no longer numb. You are no longer ignoring your limits. You are no longer pretending you're okay when you're not. And Allah loves honesty. Allah loves when His servant comes to Him tired, confused, and real. This is where your connection with Allah deepens. Your dua becomes softer but stronger. Your tears become quieter but more sincere. Your faith becomes less about appearance and more about reliance. Allah is not building a woman who never feels pain. He's building a woman who understands it, who listens to it, who grows wiser because of it. This is how your heart becomes fortified. Not hard, not closed, but stable. You will still feel deeply. You will still care sincerely, but you will no longer collapse when things hurt. You will bend, but not break. And when Allah eventually places you back into the world, into relationships, responsibilities, and visibility, you will move differently. You will not rush. You will not overgive. You will not attach your worth to outcomes, because your heart will finally feel safe. So if this season feels heavy, if you feel emotional without knowing why, if your heart feels tender and exposed, do not be afraid. Allah is not breaking you. He is strengthening your heart so it can carry the future without being crushed by it. And this kind of strength can only be built in quiet, unseen seasons. Allah builds unshakable women in places where no one can interrupt the process. There are seasons when Allah places a woman in a space where almost nothing is happening. No big changes, no dramatic breakthroughs, no loud signs, just routine, stillness, waiting, and this can feel frustrating because the heart wants movement, it wants progress, it wants to feel like something is happening. But my dear sister, listen carefully. Some of the most important work Allah does cannot happen in busy places. It cannot happen where people interrupt. It cannot happen where opinions pull you in different directions. It cannot happen where you are constantly reacting instead of reflecting. So Allah moves you into a quiet space where no one can interrupt the process. This is where unshakable women are built. In public, strength often looks impressive, but it is fragile because it depends on circumstances. It depends on support. It depends on validation. Allah wants to give you a strength that does not collapse when support disappears. So He removes interruptions. He gives you time to sit with yourself, time to notice your reactions, time to understand your triggers, time to rebuild your inner foundation. At first, this feels uncomfortable because you are no longer distracted. You notice how quickly your mood changes. You notice what still hurts. You notice what makes you anxious or impatient. And this awareness feels heavy. But this is not weakness. This is construction. Allah is not changing your environment yet, because He is changing you first. He is teaching you emotional steadiness, how to stay calm when things don't move, how to trust even when answers are delayed, how to remain grounded when nothing is explained. This is not easy, because waiting tests faith more than action. Anyone can move when they see results. Few can remain steady when they don't. This is where Allah strengthens your patience. Not the kind that forces a smile, but the kind that rests in trust. You start learning how to manage your thoughts, how to slow your reactions, how to respond instead of react. And slowly, your inner world becomes quieter, not empty, stable. This is where your faith becomes firm, not emotional, not dependent on feelings, but rooted. Allah is teaching you to stand without leaning on people, to stay balanced without reassurance, to trust Him even when the path ahead is unclear. This kind of strength cannot be taught through success. It is learned through stillness. And once it is built, it cannot be shaken, because it does not depend on outcomes. It depends on Allah. So if you feel like life has paused, if you feel like you're waiting without direction, if you feel like nothing is happening, please understand this. Allah is not wasting your time. He is building you where no one can interfere. No distractions, no pressure, no interruption. Just you, your heart, and Allah. And when this process is complete, when your foundation is solid, Allah will move you forward. And when He does, you will not rush. You will not panic. You will not collapse under pressure, because you will be unshakable. Not because life became easy, but because Allah made you strong in the quiet place, where no one could interrupt His work. This season is teaching you to exist without explaining yourself. There comes a point in this journey where Allah teaches a woman something very difficult, but very freeing. He teaches her how to exist without explaining herself. For a long time, you may have felt the need to clarify everything. Why you changed, why you stepped back, why you said no, why you became quieter, why you no longer tolerate what you once accepted. You felt the need to justify your choices so people wouldn't misunderstand you. But my dear sister, listen carefully. This season is teaching you that not everyone needs an explanation. Some people do not want to understand you. They want access to you. They want the old version of you. They want the convenience you once offered. And Allah is gently breaking this pattern. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You feel misunderstood. You feel judged. You feel like people are forming stories about you that are not true. And the old you would rush to explain, to correct, to prove, to soften their opinion. But Allah is teaching you restraint. He is teaching you that your peace is not worth sacrificing just to be understood by those who never protected your heart. This is where maturity begins. You start realizing that explanations drain energy, that defending yourself invites more confusion, that silence can be more dignified than words. Allah is teaching you to trust Him as your witness. When Allah sees your intention, you don't need everyone else to. When Allah knows your heart, you don't need to prove it. This does not mean you become cold. It does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop performing. You stop shrinking yourself to fit people's comfort. You stop justifying boundaries that are necessary. You stop explaining growth to those committed to misunderstanding it. This lesson is hard for kind women, because kindness often comes with over-explaining, with softening truth, with carrying guilt for other people's discomfort. But Allah is teaching you something higher. He is teaching you self-respect. You learn that your no does not need a long story, that your silence does not mean weakness, that walking away quietly can be an act of faith. And slowly, something shifts inside you. You feel lighter, calmer, more grounded. You stop reacting to every opinion. You stop absorbing every assumption. You stop letting other people's confusion become your burden. This is not arrogance. This is clarity. Allah is building a woman who moves with purpose, not permission. A woman who listens to Allah more than she listens to noise. A woman who chooses peace even when misunderstood. A woman who trusts that what is meant to know her will find her. And yes, this means some people will drift away. But understand this gently. Those who require constant explanations were never aligned with your becoming. Allah is removing the need for approval because approval kept you tied to places you had outgrown. This season is teaching you inner security. You begin to feel settled even when misunderstood. You begin to feel steady even when unseen. You begin to feel confident even when alone, because your worth is no longer dependent on being explained correctly. It is rooted in Allah. So, if you find yourself speaking less, explaining less, defending less, do not worry. You are not losing your voice. You are learning when to use it. And that wisdom is one of the strongest forms of strength Allah places in a woman's heart. As this lesson deepens, Allah begins to show you something else. When you stop explaining yourself, you also stop carrying other people's confusion. Before, every misunderstanding felt heavy. Every wrong assumption felt personal. Every silence from others made you anxious. You kept replaying conversations in your mind, thinking of what you should have said, what you could have clarified, what you needed to fix. But Allah slowly teaches you this truth. You are not responsible for how people choose to misunderstand you. Some people do not misunderstand by accident. They misunderstand by choice, because understanding you would require them to face their own behavior. So Allah releases you from that burden. He teaches you how to stay calm, even when people speak wrongly about you, how to stay quiet, even when your heart wants to defend itself, how to walk away without bitterness. This is very hard, because silence feels like weakness to those who don't understand spiritual strength. But Allah knows something people don't. He knows that dignity grows in silence, that strength matures in restraint, that peace survives when you stop chasing validation. When you stop explaining yourself, your energy changes. You no longer feel scattered. You no longer feel drained after conversations. You no longer feel the need to convince anyone of your goodness. And this gives you space. Space to think clearly. Space to breathe. Space to connect with Allah without noise. You start using your words more carefully. Not because you are afraid, but because you are intentional. You speak when it matters. You stay silent when it doesn't. And Allah begins to protect you in new ways. He protects you from oversharing, from emotional exposure, from giving people access to parts of you they were never meant to touch. This is where your boundaries become quiet but firm. You no longer announce them. You no longer defend them. You simply live them. And those who respect you will adjust. Those who don't will slowly disappear. And this is okay, because Allah is teaching you that loss is sometimes alignment. Not everyone who leaves is a loss. Some are a release. This lesson also teaches you trust. Trust that Allah sees everything. Trust that Allah knows your intentions. Trust that Allah will defend you better than words ever could. You begin to rely on Allah as your protector. When people judge, you stay calm. When people misunderstand, you stay steady. When people question your choices, you stay rooted. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because you no longer let it control you. And this is a powerful shift. You stop living in reaction mode. You stop shaping yourself around people's expectations. You stop shrinking just to stay accepted. You become still. And stillness is powerful, because a woman who does not rush to explain herself cannot be easily manipulated. She cannot be pulled into unnecessary drama. She cannot be shaken by every opinion. She knows who she is. She knows who she belongs to, and that is enough. So if you notice yourself becoming keener, less reactive, less interested in proving anything, this is not distance. This is growth. Allah is teaching you to walk with quiet confidence, to move without noise, to trust without fear. You are not becoming invisible. You are becoming unbothered by misunderstanding. And that is one of the strongest forms of freedom Allah gives to a woman. You were made invisible so your worth could no longer be negotiated. There comes a final realization in this journey, a quiet one, a realization that changes how you see yourself forever. You begin to understand that Allah did not make you invisible to take something away from you. He did it so your worth could no longer be negotiated. For a long time, your value may have felt connected to other people, to how much you were needed, to how much you were appreciated, to how much you were chosen, to how much attention you received. And without realizing it, your worth slowly became something others could influence. When people were kind, you felt valuable. When people pulled away, you felt less. When people praised you, you felt strong. When people ignored you, you felt small. Allah saw this, and Allah does not allow the worth of His servant to remain in the hands of creation. So He gently removes you. He removes you from places where your value had to be proven. He removes you from spaces where your presence was only appreciated as long as you were useful. He removes you from situations where love felt conditional. At first this feels painful, because invisibility feels like loss. When you don't yet see what Allah is building, but slowly something shifts. You start realizing that even when no one is watching, you still exist. Even when no one is praising, you still matter. Even when no one is choosing you, Allah is still choosing you. This is where your worth moves. It moves away from people, away from outcomes, away from validation, and it becomes rooted in Allah. This kind of worth is different. It does not rise and fall. It does not depend on attention. It does not disappear in silence. It stays. You begin to feel steady in ways you never felt before. You no longer feel desperate to be seen. You no longer feel anxious about being forgotten. You no longer feel threatened by someone else's presence. Because you finally understand this truth. What Allah values does not need constant proof. This lesson also changes how you love. You stop overgiving just to feel needed. You stop tolerating disrespect just to stay included. You stop lowering your standards just to avoid loneliness. Not because you became hard, but because you became secure. Allah replaces insecurity with dignity, and dignity changes everything. You walk differently. You speak differently. You choose differently. You are no longer afraid of being alone, because you are no longer empty inside. You feel full of self-respect, full of trust in Allah, full of peace that does not need explanation. And this is when Allah prepares to bring you back into relationships, back into responsibility, back into visibility. But now it is different. You are no longer entering as someone seeking worth. You are entering as someone who carries it. People may not know what changed about you, but they will feel it. You will not need to announce it. You will not need to prove it. Your presence will speak quietly, because a woman whose worth is anchored in Allah cannot be shaken by rejection, cannot be controlled by approval, and cannot be reduced by silence. So if you were made invisible for a season, if your life became quiet, if your circle became small, if your heart was pulled away from the world, understand this gently. Allah was not hiding you from people. He was hiding you from needing people to know your worth. And that is the greatest strength Allah can give a woman, because once your worth is no longer negotiable. Nothing and no one can take it away. If you are unseen right now, uncelebrated, quietly growing, understand this. Allah does not hide women He intends to forget. He hides women He intends to reveal correctly, at the right time, in the right way, with the right strength. And when that moment comes, you will not need to announce who you are. Your presence will speak for itself.